Commanders have been in Rise of Kingdoms from day one. And we've had a lot of commander evolution, and they've added a ton of new mechanics. And I want to know, Gaines, what do you think about commanders in today's game in Rise of Kingdoms?
I I feel like Chad is kind of talking about it in I think it was Tyler, yeah, about the power creep. And honestly, I think that commanders have been getting so much stronger that it makes a lot of commanders obsolete. But at the same time, you're not really having like this is like the all-in-one best commander ever. Although I do say the Luce would be that commander if there was one. But if you're looking at all the commanders, it's like you can't really go wrong. There's like six best commanders that you can look at. So I do think that like they're trying to make it more of an even playing field, but it feels like new commanders are a lot less, like a lot more underwhelming, I should say.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was like when Nevsky came out, it was insane. It was like, holy crap, this is Nevsky. And now it's like, oh yeah, new commanders coming out. Whoop-de-doo, right?
Yeah. Well, they've also gotten way more niche. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
what you've seen about Subutai. He's going to be great only for rallying structures and cities. That's it.
Yep.
You can't use him in the open field. His mechanics won't work. And they like did the same thing with Arthur. Like Arthur is, I think he's probably one of the best commander additions we've had in a long time. All of his skills are for the field. You can't throw him in a rally.
Hmm.
He's useless. So like, I don't know. I feel like way back when you would have commanders constantly joining, breaking the meta, shaking up the meta. Um, and then they created this museum system. Tano just called it out. They created this museum system, and it's useless. I don't know that any of the museum buffs are bringing any commanders back into my marches that weren't already in there, right? Like
Yep.
Alex, he's probably already in there. YSG, probably already in there. Make Richard useful. Please. But like, I feel like they've taken out a lot of the creativity with the commanders, and they keep introducing these new mechanics that are like, again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, not well fleshed out.
I think you're just mad that you can't use Attila Takeda.
I mean, I think you're probably right, but that's okay. I can use Attila Luce when I get an artifact. It
That's
gives
true.
me my Attila fix. But I think, for example, like let's look at William Wallace. I have him up on the screen right now. They came out with the Smite talent tree, and they introduced a commander who was all about Smite. Smite is, I think, a pretty good mechanic. We spoke about this in another stream, which I'll link on the top right side of the screen for those watching back. We went through and we spoke about how Smite was this new, exciting mechanic that allowed normal attack damage buffs, which are also instant proc, if anyone didn't really realize that, um, and how it could change how the game works. They've done nothing with it.
Hmm.
Like, if you could build a commander, what mechanics would you add onto that commander?
I think nowadays, like skill damage reduction feels like it's a lot less good than it used to be, like with all this other smite damage. So I think normal damage reduction is huge. I don't think that's talked about enough because that debuffs everything, not just smite. Like that debuffs everything. But that'd be one definitely
Okay.
big thing.
What would your damage type that you opt for be? Would you go skill damage, smite damage, no damage, poison? Give me your mechanics. Come on, Gaines. Let's build a commander to inspire Lilith.
We kind of did this with Plato, didn't we?
I think you did. I wasn't on that stream.
Oh, you weren't? Who else was on that? I can't remember. I thought you were on that stream.
No.
That was like the anniversary stream or something. I I think 5 March AoE might be a little greedy, but I absolutely love that. Um, while we're at it, we'll put it in a circle formation
Oh, get
or
out of
circle
here.
circle AoE. Um, I think having a smite 5 target AoE would be huge. I think that could be a future infantry commander that we see,
Oh, that would be
potentially
broken.
Sun Tzu Prime.
Do you think that
I
they
don't think it'd be
should
circular though.
keep the smite mechanic, combo attack, mighty healing? Do you think they should keep them restricted to unit types? I feel like that's a mistake.
Um, I feel like they're trying to make people be more niche and less all over the place and be like, you have to choose this kind of commander, which I don't love because kind of like we talked about, it's way too niche. It's too much at this point where a commander is only good for this one thing, and if you're not doing that one thing, it's useless. I don't love that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Lilith could be doing more with commanders. And you know what really breaks my heart? Maybe I'm just a snob for this, but when I downloaded Rise of Kingdoms, what I searched was essentially Civ with friends. Civ does a really good job of integrating the commanders into the game, right? If you pick China, you get certain buffs, and Sun Tzu has certain buffs and things like that. And Lilith has never been able to apply the commander origins to the game at all, right? Like, I think we spoke about this at one point, but like Arthur, he's English. Why does that matter? Right? There's nothing about Arthur's skills or talents or anything that makes it remotely unique to Arthur. You could literally throw on Donald Trump as the commander, and I'm sure a lot of people would max him. But you could throw him on there, and it would be the exact same thing.
Um, yeah, I like the historical aspect of the commanders, but I think there should be more to it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a bummer to me. And what's wild is we're getting commander primes of legendary commanders. Why? Right? Like, I don't know. Are there any historical commanders you can think of that aren't in the game that maybe should be?
I feel like you could definitely you could make a list of commanders that should be in the game and aren't. I feel like the prime commanders, people talk about this a lot, is they wish like you had other historical figures coming in rather than prime commanders and like, oh, just a recycled commander essentially. It I don't want to say it was lazy, but it feels lazy. And I know that they were trying to be like, oh, these are popular commanders, let's bring them back and make them usable. But I think it would have been better to put that effort into making a new historical commander, or even doing a new, um, like Diao Shan and Lu Bu. What was that?
Oh yeah, yeah. That
I
was
can't
that
remember.
collaboration that they
Yeah,
did.
Dynasty Warriors. Yeah, like doing collaborations or like the Viking civilization. I think that was really cool too. Um, I think doing more of those would have been a lot better than taking a recycled commander and just making it a better option.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm surprised that they went with prime commanders. I think what we're really touching on are a few main problems. A, I think Lilith has made commanders very niche specific, right? Your commander is only useful for X. Whereas you look at someone like YSG, who, surprise everyone, is actually supposed to be a garrison commander, but he's useful for everything. And they've moved away from that. Then you have these very specific skills that they haven't built out enough, right? Combo attack, smite damage, mighty healing, just these game mechanics that exist, but they're not really viable. And then you just have this kind of lack of creativity in terms of integrating who the commanders are and their civilization origin into the game while also not adding new commanders that they should be adding and instead reusing the same ones that already exist. Like you just said, Sun Tzu Prime. I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I know that they've talked about that. They've even hinted about Sun Tzu Prime. I'm like, don't make another Prime commander. Like, make an actual historical figure commander. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. I mean, that would be cool. I see someone else saying like re-releases of popular older characters with art and new story. I don't even know that they've gotten the story. Like the only commander that I really was kind of pumped about the story was with Ragnar, right? Like the whole concept of, hey, we're releasing Ragnar Prime because Ragnar's a really cool historical figure, and we're releasing him in this special KVK, and he has this special belt that only applies to him. Like, that's amazing. That's what they should be doing with a bunch of these other commanders.
Mm-hmm.
But they also did it with Prime Ragnar. Like, why did they not do it with normal Ragnar? Like, right? Like, they could have just fixed him. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think having the story modes, I think that was a really good addition, and I feel like it was received very well by the community. So I feel like it's something that they are probably going to implement again in the future. At least I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. I think one of the only things that I do like that Lilith has done is with Bastion skills, you are incentivized to invest in some of these other commanders, which I think is fun. I think they even up the ante a little bit with what's that other KVK type with commander skills?
The other what?
The other KVK type with commander skills. It's not stratagems.
Are you talking about like bastions?
No, not bastions. You can actually add commander skills and essentially build your own commander by selecting one skill from each commander. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, I do.
Orleans.
I can't remember
Siege
what
of
it's called.
Orleans. Thank you, Tyler.
Yes.
Yeah, that one was cool because then you're also kind of incentivized to diversify your commanders and set up cool skill set. That's the kind of stuff that I like that I wish Lilith would do more of. I got another question for you, Gaines. Do you think
All right.
that having units be troop type specific makes sense?
Yes and no. I I understand the premise of it. They want you to be able to use commanders for certain reasons and not like use Ragnar Prime for everything, even though he has the artifact in that KVK. But I think it forces you to be a little bit more specific on the commanders you're investing in, the pairings. It makes it more, I don't know, niche is the right word. But it forces you to craft certain equipment. It forces you to look into certain inscriptions. Like it makes you really try to go in one direction, which is both good and bad. I think it would be better if you had more versatility with it. I feel like that's something we used to have, not as much anymore with the new mechanics of the game. But I feel like with artifacts, it makes it a little bit more flexible, being able to transition, like you said, Luce into cavalry and use him with Attila.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if you guys have enjoyed this type of content and you enjoy, both Gaines and myself are sponsored Rise of Kingdoms content creators. If you haven't already, do go check out Gaines' channel. It's linked in the description. Thank you so much, Gaines. Do you have any final thoughts on commanders in Rise of Kingdoms?
I'm honestly just excited to see what is coming next because I feel like I said before, the recent commanders coming out, I feel like have been a little bit more underwhelming. Obviously Arthur is fantastic, but I feel like they're all kind of on that same level of just being so good, you can't really go wrong with choosing one. I feel like they need to get back into more of like meta changing commanders coming out, like just changing the trajectory of garrisoning and rallying, especially because open field is one thing, but it's the same garrisons, it's the same rallies over and over and over again. I feel like we haven't really had much change to that. So I hope we see more meta changing with the garrisoning rallying.
Love it. Well, thank you, Gaines. I appreciate you all. Chappie and Gaines out.